out and collect everybody's phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose. Read this right there from that young man.
Yeah, this is a real issue. And I think Diddy's lawyers are right when you're talking about somebody who's not, supposed to not be able to be accessed in this way.
And that's super scary. If he, in fact, woke up with a knife to his throat, I mean, that's friggin' terrible.
You know that feeling when you wake up in the middle of the night and just know something's wrong? That cold sweat, that prickle on the back of your neck, like the air itself is holding its breath? Now imagine that, but instead of just a bad dream, it's the sound of a homemade blade being dragged across concrete, inching closer to your cell, and the guy holding it isn't some random convict with a grudge. He's a messenger. And the message? We haven't forgotten Quad Studios. That's the reality for Sean Diddy Combs right now, locked in Brooklyn's most notorious jail, where the walls don't just hold inmates, they hold memories. And the memory of Shakur bleeding out in that lobby after getting shot 5 times? Yeah, that one's fresh. The memory of Biggie Smalls slumped in his car 6 months later, riddled with bullets in LA, still warm, and the guys sharing a cell block with Diddy? They weren't just born when it all went down, they were raised on it. So when that shiv pressed against his throat in the still of night, it wasn't just a prison fight. It was a receipt, a long overdue bill for a debt that's been waiting to be paid since 1994. And the wildest part? The world thinks Diddy's biggest problem is his human trafficking conviction? Oh, honey, that's just the appetizer. The main course? That's the 2 bodies hip-hop never got justice for. And Brooklyn always collects.
Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
The footage that 50 Cent just leaked, yeah, the one where Diddy looks like he's seen a ghost, isn't just some random prison clip. This is a man who knows exactly why that knife was at his throat. His eyes darting, his shoulders hunched like he's bracing for impact, his voice cracking when he reportedly begged to be transferred to Jersey. That's not fear, that's recognition. Because let's not forget, this is the same Diddy who once ruled New York, who flew private jets with Combs Air placemats, who had the world at his feet. And now, he's waking up on a steel slab in an 8x10 cell, staring at cinder block walls, surrounded by men who grew up during the East Coast-West Coast feud. Men who still remember what went down at Quad Studios in '94. Men who, according to Charlucci Finney, just sent him a message. Next time you ain't gonna be so lucky. And if you think that's just a prison tough talk, you haven't been paying attention. Because here's the thing, Diddy's prison stint was never just about the human trafficking case. Oh no. The second that knife pressed against his throat, the second that footage hit the internet, the game changed. This isn't about adult service charges anymore. This is about survival. And the streets? They're saying Brooklyn's inmates aren't just criminals. They're jurors. They're executioners. And they've got a score to settle. Because when you're locked up in a place like MDC Brooklyn, a jail so notorious they call it hell on earth, where R. Kelly and Ghislaine Maxwell learned the hard way that money doesn't buy safety, you don't just end up with a shiv at your throat. That's a statement. That's a verdict. And if you're Diddy, that verdict reads guilty.
That footage ended up going to 50 Cent and his production company, and it's kind of the centerpiece.
Sold to them.
Yes, was the centerpiece of the documentary. So watch this particular scene, because this is where a lot of people feel Diddy really screwed over someone that he should be very, very thankful.
Now, let's talk about that 50 Cent leak, because that's where this whole thing starts to unravel. The footage shows Diddy looking like a man who's just realized his past isn't just catching up, it's hunting him. And the timing? Oh, it's perfect. Because while the world was busy talking about his crimes trial, about Cassie Ventura's testimony, about the freak-off parties and the luxury jets being sold off to San Marino shell companies, something far more sinister was brewing. Gene Deal. Yeah, the guy who's been in Diddy's circle for decades, dropped a bomb that's still echoing through hip-hop. Diddy wasn't just near Quad Studios the night Shakur got shot. He was there. Not to work, not to hang out, but to watch. Think about that for a second. November 30th, 1994. Shakur rolls up to Quad Studios to lay down a verse for Lil Sean. Instead, he gets robbed, shot 5 times, and left bleeding in the lobby. And according to Gene, Diddy wasn't just in the building. He was in Jimmy Henchman's office when the plan went down. Shakur owed money. Jimmy Henchman wasn't the kind of guy you talked greasy to. And Diddy? Allegedly, he stayed. He didn't go to Biggie's session. He didn't leave. He waited, because he knew what was coming. And when Shakur got jumped, when the elevator doors opened and there he was, bleeding, barely standing, Diddy's people were right there, looking down, watching. And Shakur? He looked up at them and knew. They knew. That's the moment the war started. That's the moment Shakur decided the East Coast was the enemy. And that's the moment, according to Gene, that Diddy's fate was sealed.
Look at how many people he affected negatively. That was his trade-off to gain what he had. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said he seen him doing a ritual where they Dove. What is that? And I feel like it's being overlooked because they see him doing the dance moves with the baggy clothes. You know, some of the ladies in his videos were trans ladies.
Fast forward to Vegas, 1996. Shakur's in a white Cadillac, leaving the MGM when the shots ring out. 6 days later, he's gone. And for decades, that case stayed cold. Until 2023, when Keith D, alleged Southside Crip, alleged triggerman, gets arrested. And what does he start saying? That Diddy ordered the hit, that he was furious over Shakur's disses, that there was $1 million bounty on Shakur and Suga's heads. And then, oh, this is the good part. Eric Von Zip, another name from the old days, allegedly flashed a check. $1 million, cashable, traceable. Paper trails don't fade, Gene says, and neither do street memories. Now let's connect to the dots because this is where it gets real. Diddy's in prison, Keith D is in custody, and the FBI, they've got files. They've got statements. They've got a 2008 interview where Keith D allegedly said Diddy needed to get rid of Suge and Shakur. They've got a 2009 police interview where he repeats it. And they've got a pattern. Diddy's name keeps coming up. Not as a suspect, oh no. The LVMPD will tell you he's never been officially tied to the case, but as a player, as the guy who, according to the streets, had the motive, the means, and the money to make it happen. And now? Now he's locked up in the one place where the past doesn't stay buried. Where the guys in the cell next to him, they remember. They remember the diss tracks. They remember the Quad Studios shooting. They remember Vegas. And they're not just inmates, they're witnesses.
Bankman Fried were in the unit that was one floor above mine. You know, so in terms of like the setting, it's a fairly decent chance that the room I'm describing is similar to where Diddy is. Yeah.
And here's the kicker. Diddy's been trying to get out. Oh, he's been begging. First, he wrote Trump a letter, personally, asking for a pardon. Trump, of course, laughed it off. Oh, would you like to see that letter? He teased reporters. But Diddy wasn't joking, because when you're facing 50 months in a place like MDC Brooklyn, where inmates get stabbed to their end in broad daylight, where the showers don't work, where the lights go out for days, you'll do anything. Even grovel to a man who called you sort of half innocent. Even sell off your $30 million jet. The same one you used to fly to Antigua when the feds raided your houses. The same one you posted on Instagram with "No place like home." Gone. Sold. Registered in San Marino like you're trying to hide more than just money. But here's what's really happening. While the world thinks Diddy's just another fallen mogul, while the headlines scream about his crimes and his failed pardon attempts, the real story is playing out in the shadows. Because MDC Brooklyn isn't just a jail, it's a pressure cooker. And Diddy? He's the main ingredient. The knife at his throat wasn't just intimidation. It was a reminder that Brooklyn hasn't forgotten. That the guys in there, they've got long memories. And they've got time. Time to plan, time to talk. Time to decide whether Diddy's going to make it out alive. And let's not forget, Diddy's not just any inmate. He's a target. He's the guy who, according to Kirk Burrow, pushed Biggie to go to LA, even when Biggie didn't want to. The guy who, according to Gene Deal, refused to hire extra security that night. The guy who, according to Clark Kent, set up that fatal trip to the Peterson Automotive Museum. The guy who, when Biggie got shot, suddenly had no answers. Just like he had no answers when Shakur got jumped. Just like he had no answers when the feds raided his houses and found freak-off supplies. Substances, baby oil, 1,000 bottles of lube. Just like he had no answers when Cassie Ventura testified that he filmed her, controlled her, turned her life into a job. No answers, just silence. And now the silence is screaming. Because here's the thing about MDC Brooklyn. It's not just a jail. It's a graveyard for reputations, for careers, for lives. And Diddy's in the special housing unit, supposedly for his protection. But let's be real. When you're in a place where inmates get harmed in their cells, where the feds had to pay out $10 million for inhumane conditions, where the power goes out and you're left in the dark for days, protection is a joke. And Diddy knows it. That's why he's begging to be moved. That's why his team is appealing. That's why 50 Cent's footage isn't just gossip. It's a warning. Because the streets are talking. And what they're saying? Diddy's time is running out.
Well, I mean, inmates have procedures all the time. I mean, you have folks there with cancer, you have folks there with, serious other chronic diseases. And sometimes it does require individuals to have surgery even while they're on pretrial status.
And the wild part? The feds might be listening. Because think about it. Why keep Diddy locked up when he's not a flight risk? Why deny him bail when he's got a $48 million mansion in Miami? Why hold him in a place where he's clearly in danger? Unless they're waiting for something. Unless they're building a case. Unless they're letting the pressure cook, letting the threats mount, letting the old ghosts come knocking, until Diddy breaks, until he starts talking, until he gives them what they really want, a connection to Keith D, a link to the Shakur assassination, a confession buried in the fear. Because let's not pretend this is about adult services. This is about power. This is about blood. This is about 2 rap legends who lost their lives in a hail of bullets, and a third man who's always been right there. In the studio, in the headlines, in the rumors. And now? Now, he's in a cell, with a target on his back, and the walls are closing in. The question isn't if Diddy's past is catching up to him, it's when. And in a place like MDC Brooklyn, when might be tonight. But here's what they're not telling you. The feds aren't just holding Diddy for adult services. Oh no, that's the cover story. The real play? Insiders say he's locked in that Brooklyn hellhole because the U.S. Attorney's Office is quietly stacking a case. One that doesn't involve freak-off parties or Mann Act violations, but something far darker. And the name that keeps surfacing in those sealed discussions? Keefe D., the man who allegedly pulled the trigger in Vegas, the man who, in a 2008 DEA interview, claimed Diddy needed to get rid of Shakur and sue goodnight. The man who, according to old informant reports, said Diddy offered $1 million to make it happen. Now, the LVMPD will tell you, officially, that Diddy was never a suspect in Shakur's case. But let's read between the lines of that statement, because never a suspect doesn't mean never a person of interest. And when you're dealing with a case this cold, this layered, the difference between those two phrases, that's where the truth hides.
It's probably leaning towards guilt. Now, on the racketeering, I agree with you that the predicate acts may be found, but that's not all they need. There's an ultimate question. The first question on the jury verdict form is, do you find him guilty or not guilty of racketeering? Before you even get to the predicate acts, which you only get to if you find guilt, they could just be hung up on that question and say, this guy's not Tony Soprano. I am not convinced that I even want to find guilt.
Here's the thing about Diddy's current legal battles. The human trafficking appeals, the pardon letters to Trump, the desperate attempts to sell off his jet and his mansions. None of it matters in the long run. Because while the world's distracted by the tabloid spectacle, the real action is happening in the background. Keefe D's trial is delayed. But the feds? They're not waiting. They're listening. And what they're hearing, according to sources close to the investigation, is that Diddy's prison stint isn't just punishment. It's leverage. Because when you're locked in a cell with a target on your back, when every day could be your last, when the guys next to you are whispering about Quad Studios in Vegas 96, you start to talk. And the feds, they know it. That's why they're keeping him right where he is. Isolated, vulnerable, desperate. Because the second Diddy starts bargaining for his life, the second he offers up a name, a connection, a confession, that's when the real case begins. And let's not forget the Mann Act charges he's already facing. Those are just the appetizer. The main course? That's a RICO case built on 2 bodies and a paper trail that allegedly leads straight back to Bad Boy Records. Now, let's talk about Biggie, because this isn't just about Shakur. Oh no, the feds are looking at both cases. And the questions they're asking? They're the same ones Kirk Burrow has been screaming for years. Like, why, exactly, did Diddy push Biggie to go to LA when Biggie didn't want to go? Why did he override his own artist's instincts, his fears, his pleas to stay away from the West Coast? And here's the kicker. According to Gene Deal, Diddy didn't just ignore Biggie's concerns. He refused to hire extra security that night. Not because they couldn't afford it. Oh no, Diddy's own detail was armed to the teeth. But Biggie's convoy? Undermanned, unprepared, vulnerable. And when Clark Kent, Biggie's DJ and close friend, allegedly asked him, "Why are we even here?" Biggie's answer was chilling. It was set up by Sean and someone else. Now, let that sink in. Because if Diddy knew the risks, if he knew the threats, if he knew the history between the coasts, and he still sent Biggie out there with a skeleton crew, that's not negligence. That's something worse.
With the series, with the film.
I mean, I think the intention is to give a more full-bodied experience to what happened, you know, from the people that agreed to sit down and to participate. And I feel like the film asks a lot of questions, you know, maybe more questions are asked than answers given.
And the feds are connecting the dots. Because here's what we know. Diddy's legal team has been fighting tooth and nail to get him out of MDC Brooklyn, calling it inhumane, dangerous, a violation of his rights. But the judges, they're not budging. And why would they? When you've got a man like Diddy, someone who's spent decades surrounded by lawyers, by fixers, by people who make problems disappear, the only way to break him is to put him somewhere he can't control. Somewhere like Brooklyn's special housing unit, where the lights flicker, the showers don't work, and the inmates aren't just criminals. They're witnesses, where every day is a reminder that the streets haven't forgotten, that the feds haven't forgotten, that Shakur and Biggie haven't forgotten. And the longer he's in there, the more the pressure builds. Because Diddy's not just fighting for his freedom anymore. He's fighting for his life. Now, let's talk about the 2 futures waiting for Diddy when he walks out of that jail. If he walks out. Future number 1, he serves his time, keeps his mouth shut, and emerges a broken man. No more jets, no more mansions, no more power. Just a shadow of the mogul he once was, living under the weight of a reputation that's been destroyed not just by crimes, but by the whispers that he had blood on his hands. Future number 2? That's the one that should terrify him. Because in that future, Diddy doesn't just walk out of prison. He walks out in handcuffs, not for adult services, not for racketeering, but for taking a life. And the evidence? It's already out there. Keefe D's statements, the informant reports, the $1 million check, the pattern. 2 rap legends, both gunned down in their prime, both tied to Diddy in ways that have never been fully explained. And the feds? They've got time, they've got resources, and they've got a man in a cell who's running out of both.
People know about this very public, long-standing feud that you've had with Sean Combs. So what brought you to this project?
Well, I just want to make really hit television. I like the idea of it being exciting, and I picked this project and started working on it about 5 months before I found Alex. And I know that she has the artistic integrity that it would take to make it great.
But here's the part that should make all of us pause. Because if the feds are building a case, if they are waiting for Diddy to crack, if they are using his prison time as a way to flip him or break him, then the real question isn't about Diddy's guilt or innocence. It's about justice. Because Shakur and Biggie's cases have been cold for decades. The families have waited, the fans have waited, the culture has waited. And if Diddy does know something, if he was involved, if he can finally give the world the answers it's been demanding, then maybe, just maybe, this isn't just about punishment. Maybe it's about closure. Maybe it's about 2 legends who never got the justice they deserved. And maybe, just maybe, Diddy's prison sentence isn't the end of his story. It's the beginning of someone else's. So here's where we leave it. Because the truth, it's still out there. And the next move, whether it's a confession, a conviction, or a cover-up, is coming. The only question is, who's ready for it? Because one thing's for sure, Diddy's not sleeping easy tonight. And neither should we. Stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, when the lights go out in Brooklyn, the real stories come to life. We'll be watching, and so will they.